DC here. Hi, guys and gals. It's Sunday afternoon. It must be, just a minute. It is 20 to 4. And it's relatively cool. I say relatively because it's just in the, in Celsius, it's probably around 6. So that's not very cold. It's not warm, but it's not very cold. And the only thing is there's a north wind. You don't feel it right now. It's kind of calmed down, but a few seconds ago there was snow. So maybe, I don't know, what temperature is it really? I say around 6, but to have snow, it almost has to be lower than that. I don't know. It says on my watch, it says 7, but it only lasted like 20 seconds. So I guess it was just a local cloud that just was over me, and there was a bit of snow, and it went. So nothing's on the ground or what. But we did have snow this morning. We were in church, and all of a sudden Mrs. DC told me, look out the window. And I did, and it was snowing. Snowflakes, but it lasted about 10 minutes and nothing stayed on the ground. So yeah, it's spring. It's spring over here. Yeah. So I just finished doing a bit of a walk. As you can hear from the birds, I'm in the park, just walking around the pond this afternoon. I just finished listening to a podcast. It was quite interesting. It was about relationships with your relationships concerning your parents and concerning how you are as a parent. Anyway, so I won't actually get into the podcast details, but what I had been thinking about this morning, because if you live in Canada, and particularly if you live in Quebec, or if you live in Vermont, for example, in the States, some places in Ontario, this is the maple sugar season, the sugaring season. Now, those of you who are my age, some others maybe, but at least my age, it was a period, where it was great fun, because that meant it could be horses, it could be with tractors, it could and so on, and it meant going and helping out with friends or family, and collecting the sap and boiling it into maple syrup. So a few of my relatives, one of my uncles, had a maple grove where he had his trees and so on, and would make his syrup. But right across from where we lived, there was a convent, so there were nuns, and they had woods which were maples, maple trees. And so my dad would help out over there, and we would go and walk in those woods and help with the sugaring. So that was really something. And it was also a big thing in the spring, because there'd be the maple sugar houses. If you speak French, they'd call them les cabanes, the shacks, basically, the sugar shacks, the cabane à sucre, sugar shacks. And that was really something. My dad was he had done the sugaring process, making maple syrup, since he was a little boy, and he just kept on doing it. When he moved later on into a town, I have videos actually if you look it up, but when he explained it all. But what he would do on the road where he lived in the city, it was all maple trees. So he asked the people on the different houses if he could tap their trees. So basically tap them and put in a bucket. And so he would collect the sap, and he would make maple syrup in his garage. There was actually an article in the newspaper at the time, about this old guy, because he was retired at the time, this old guy who would make maple syrup, in the city and so on. So it's kind of amusing. My brother is the one my brother and a nephew have continued the tradition. My brother lives in the countryside, and he's got he's tapped with a pipeline system, and he built his own sugar shack, and he is canning his maple syrup and so on. So yeah, so the tradition is not gone. And my nephew, who's a vet actually, but he makes his maple syrup in the same way my dad basically does, in his garage. So yeah, it's quite amusing. Yeah, I mean, thinking about that, and I mean, looking at some pictures when my dad was making the maple syrup in his garage, and the grin on his face. I mean, he already, by then, that picture, he had already been diagnosed with his Parkinson's disease. But you could tell by the grin on his face, and that was really nice, because when he started his Parkinson's disease, he couldn't smile really very well anymore. For some reason, he always had a kind of a rictus in his face, but there was a real smile of pleasure and of joy. It was nice. Yeah, it got me really, it got me pretty emotional actually, because my dad has always been somebody who was always very manual, but had very little, almost no formal education. And so everything that he did, he had to kind of teach himself, and it was always usually the hard way. But he would be such an encourager as far as we were concerned. And I was thinking about that, because it's something that it's so important for young people. I'm not going to just say only young men. But young people to have a parent that encourages them. And for some reasons, it's pretty important that it's the dad. I know some will say, yeah, well, the mom's there. But the dads are usually the ones that are, well, very often not so good with their emotions. And, if a dad shares his pride, his joy, his love with his children, and of his children, there's something special. There really is. And that's the type of thing my dad did quite easily, nevertheless. And I found, when you think about it, those are things that stay. And now, I'm a granddad, but I'm still a dad. So I try to do it, and do it to many generations. My daughter-in-law, who lost her father in 2012, I think, so a bit before they got married. Actually, my son and the daughter-in-law, they got engaged relatively earlier than when they planned to marry, because their father-in-law had been diagnosed with cancer. But I try to be I almost going to say a proxy dad as much as I can, and tell her I'm proud and so on, and do the things that her dad would probably do for her. And she's giving it. She gives it back. In that sense, she is very loving and very open to say it. So I really, really enjoy that. And when they got married, she had me bring her to the altar. And to play as her dad. I usually get pretty emotional when I think about that. It really does touch me every time. Yeah. So anyway, guys, those of you who are dads, don't forget it. But you know something? You can be a mentor to other people. Yesterday, we were at a birthday party, and I'm going to have to say this quickly. We're already at 9 minutes. But we were at a birthday party of a friend's for a daughter of theirs who was 30 years old. And that we have known since she's like 3 or something like that. And there was one of the elder sons that was over there, and he came to me, and he actually called me today and thanks me for certain things that I said to him, which I think he needed to hear from a father-like figure. So that's interesting. I could. It's a kind of a complicated thing, because he's a man who's in his early 50s, but because of a divorce, never had the father figure around, or so it seems. He had a lot of woman figures that took very good care of him. I'm not saying the contrary, but not much of a father figure. And that comes out sometimes when we're talking. And so, like you say, he called me up and said that he needed the things that I told, that I helped him to loosen up and to feel well, because he wasn't feeling well. And yeah, so that was very touching as well. Okay, I have been talking long enough. I hope you have a great Sunday. And I'm gonna probably just continue my walk for a little bit and then go back home. Okay, so I'll be DC signing off. Take care, everybody, and chat with you soon. Bye-bye.